Cancer, it's your in-depth monthly horoscope for July 2024. On the screen now, I'm showing your event chart right at the start of the month. And what we need to be mindful of is the planets in your sign, but also your ruler, the moon. And you can see the moon is in the sign of Taurus, where it is exalted. So this is a very favourable location for the moon, but it's also linking back to the sun in your sign. The Sun, Venus and Mercury are all evoking within you a potential to develop your individual talents, flair and creativity. But whatever part of your life you're working on, they're also encouraging you to be very single-minded. But what the energy in Taurus, which features the moon in its connection to the sun, Mars in its connection to Venus, and Uranus in its connection to Mercury in your sign, is saying to you that you're going to have a really fine ability to balance what you want to do as an individual with how you connect to others. So this means that some of the thrust at the start of this month could be towards group activities, or it could be that you're going to get people working around you and collaborating and cooperating with you, or that you've just got everything so finely poised that you can be single-minded, but in a way that other people will be receptive to you. Not least, of course, Venus. If we think about Venus in our own sign, it's a fantastic chance to be really, really in touch with how we dress and present ourselves, but our flair and artistry to the maximum extent. Then you get the warmth and the fire and thrust of Mars, very much more to do with our individuality, feeding into Venus in a very balanced way. That's excellent. And then Uranus is about having the confidence to try some different things. And since 2019, you may have been surprised by how your life has changed. You may have become much more interested in some subjects or people that in the past might not have been your proverbial cup of tea. So your inventiveness is also much to the fore as this month begins. So a very providential set of influences, but that's not all, because Jupiter, the planet which is exalted in your sign, is in your 12th house, which is really encouraging you to be in touch with the more spiritual and psychological potential of Jupiter, which comes through its rulership of Pisces. And that's in a semi-sextile to both the moon, your ruler, but also to the sun in your sign. So even the things you're doing quietly behind the scenes, if you're doing some deep healing, some workshops, you're having some therapeutic experiences, you're booking in for a spa day, anything that you're doing at the start of this month is really set fair. So truly exciting for you, Cancer, as we come into this month. And it's all going to be blessed by the new moon in your sign on the 5th, which, if you think about it, because the moon is your ruler, probably one of the most, if not the most important new moons of the year. Some people would argue it's the new moon in Leo because of the sun being the ruler of that sign. Now that's a potential gotcha, but I'm just going to dart back to the second because Mercury moves out of your sign and into Leo. Now, to be honest, Mercury's not completely at its best in Cancer, because what can happen is the water of your sign can erode the logic of Mercury, but it moves into the red hot sign of Leo on the 2nd, which of course is a fire sign, so passion, but for you that's your second house and can be about everyday money, self-worth and values. And that's what Mercury is going to start a developing trend off that's going to pick up speed and momentum as July goes on. But it does go face to face to Pluto. And this is where you may meet a challenge, because Pluto in your 8th house is where we share money, it's where we invest. It can be where we're most invested emotionally. It can be very close and intimate partnerships. But also Mercury in the 2nd house can be about those values. So if we are connecting to someone deeply who has a very different value system, or sees the financial things that you're working on in a very starkly different way, there could be a real collision between your ideas, Mercury, and the politics of the situation. So, for example, if you're looking to renew an overdraft with your bank for your business, or you're looking to raise some finance for a property, a new mortgage, you may encounter resistance because someone holds the power, and that could be uncomfortable. But it's also an opportunity to think about getting the ins and outs around your everyday resources, the second house, working effectively with being mindful of your future plan as well. But on the 5th, that new moon definitely is a great opportunity to manifest your individual hopes. It does T-square up with the nodal axis. If you recall, last July, the North Node, the point of destiny, inversed back into the sign of Aries. And it's an interesting one because, in a way, once the North Node returns to Pisces next January, we're starting the whole process again that lasts 18.6 years, but it's all in reverse to the rest of the zodiac. But the 10th house for you, as this represents, is about your role in life, your visibility, your power, not power over people. And it can be to do with your work, but it also can be where you're being drawn. So the connections that you're being drawn towards, the professional opportunities, where you're being encouraged to raise your profile. It's very much coming from the North Node. However, Chiron is also in Aries and goes into a retrograde at the end of this month. And if you're someone who doesn't quite believe that you have all that is needed to manifest success, the combination of these two things, but particularly the nodal axis T-squaring with your moon, is a bit of a challenge. And it's a challenge that's saying to you, sometimes in life, we really, really have to be utterly single-minded. Don't forget one great gift you've got. That is that you're a cardinal sign. That's a sign of action. There's only 4 cardinal signs. It's a leadership position. So the new moon, once a year in your sign, the fact it is conflicted in a subtle way, it may be that to get ahead in the way you think is required could be in some ways see you dimming your light in order to fit in with an organisation or a line manager or a group of colleagues. And you shouldn't do that. It's important to stay with your power. But if work has been stressful for you, particularly since last July, it wouldn't be a complete surprise. But one of the things you could do is think about other things you could do, like other jobs you could apply for, or could you work for yourself? Could you be more inventive? Because remember, the energy at the start of this month is very futuristic. It's also very dynamic, but it's all about your ability to build connections and collaborations. And there will be people who are eager to work with you, and it's important that you do recognize and appreciate that. In fact, Venus, through the first week of this month, forges a terrific link with Saturn, and Saturn, the planet of wisdom, in your 9th house. That may feel that expansion has been at a heavy cost over the last 15 months, but if you just work patiently in the way that you do, making sure that you keep the flow of communication going, but you attend to the jobs you've got in that way that very few signs can compete with, in the sense that you manage things so very well, so very effectively. So lots of energy at the start of this month to offset the challenge that comes from the North Node, particularly squaring up with the new moon in your sign, and also Pluto going into opposition with Pluto. But if finances is something that you are actively working on at this present time, you can see at the start of this month, the more that you take charge of things, the better you're going to do. And on the 12th, you can start to see your progress. And from then on, for the following 3 weeks, there could be some very good news around your resources. But just like Mercury, Pluto is there, laying in wait, ready to snare. And the interesting thing about Venus in the 2nd, and remember, the 2nd house can be about sensuality. It's not just about money. It's not just about self-worth. It can be about drawing something to us which is really enriching. So that can be good food, can be nice nice drinks, it can be very soothing massages, or it could be the embrace of someone you're very fond of. And you could find at the heart of this month in week 2, a hot connection comes knocking at your celestial door. Now, if you're available for that, that in itself can be very exciting indeed. And it may be someone who up until now you've only seen as being a friend or someone in your social circle, but this could be somebody who really is drawn towards you. If this is a very sincere connection, this particular juncture of the month could be life-changing. But the problem with Venus and Pluto is that our desire to get what we want, whether it's the money or the intimacy, the sex, can be so strong that we cut across our values, or we're less mindful of how it can mean for the other person, because Pluto's about power. So whatever you're drawn to at the heart of this month, whether it is a spontaneous splash out on something rather luxurious, or it is spoiling someone that you're really attracted to, or it is having a very intense connection, just try to work out what the motives are for you and them before you go all in. But on the 20th, Mars moves out of your 11th house and into the 12th, which can be quite complex. It's going to be there for 6 weeks. Mars in the 12th house is excellent if you work behind the scenes. So if your role is in a big organisation, an institution, a hospital, a prison, a governmental department, you have an important job, but you're quite happy to work in the depths of that overall organisation, Mars can be very good for you. Funnily enough, if you found yourself with a job that has anything to do with water, even though it's moved into the air sign of Gemini, that is a definite possibility. Or it may be if you're a healer or you're a therapeutic practitioner, your drive can be increased to help people over that following 6 weeks. But Mars moving into this area can also evoke old pain and wounds. Mars is about anger, let's be truthful about that. It also can be very reactionary, it can also be very triggered, it can be about where we feel a sense of injustice, and the 12th house can be the parts of ourselves that we think we're in touch with, but sometimes we're not. I'm a great believer that we keep emotion in our bodies. Cancers are very affected in terms of digestion and tummy by stress. So over the following 6 weeks, you may be surprised how things that you went through many, many moons ago suddenly take on a life force of their own. It could see you at times feeling very feisty, and at other times very nostalgic, but also melancholy as well. So it creates a lot of extremes. So just be conscious of that, but it does forge an immediate angle to Pluto. Pluto in your 8th house. So we've got the 2 planets that rule the sign of Scorpio, your sister water sign, collaborating. But the 12th house is the sector of culmination, very deep, can be hidden. The 8th house can be to do with resources, where we're most invested or devoted, but it also can be where things make way. If you've got a situation in your life where you have been connected to someone, whether it's a business, a friend, a family member, or a romantic partner, and you're not feeling it anymore, you don't feel they share your values, that's a very powerful and dynamic influence, which could see some very deep old stuff into the open, which may need to be looked at in a very fair way, because we have another full moon opposing you on the 21st in Capricorn, the 2nd of course. This one is blessed by Neptune, the last one was blighted by it, but Uranus is in this one in a helpful way, pushing you to be open to some of the information that comes your way. So if some big, old, rather difficult, painful subject, it may be to do with someone's death, it may be to do with someone's betrayal, it may be to do with sex, it may be to do with a legacy or deep dishonesty, or someone using power in a way which is not obvious, and that energy can all crest up on the cusp of this third week beginning of this month. And then on the full moon, you have an opportunity to ventilate it with care and compassion, Neptune, but also total honesty. Uranus in the 11th house is about reaching to the sky, which Uranus mythically rules, and getting to that point where we're not influenced by the need for control and protectiveness, because that can be the bit of the gotcha with Cancerian people. The cardinality of your sign makes you very powerful, but also can see you try to defend yourself because you do have that innate dislike. Very often, not all cancers, of course, but very often an innate dislike of confrontation. But something that's very important to you that you need to get off your chest, or someone else wants to get off their chest to you, could reach a biting point of some incredible power through the 20th onwards. On the 22nd, the sun moves out of your sign. And if you have been working in a creative way very efficiently, extra money can come in from that too. But it too is confronted by Pluto, just like Venus and Mercury before. So power over resources, or power over intimacy, because the 2nd and 8th house polarities is very stubborn if we think about the rulership of the signs of Taurus and Scorpio. So inflexibility around those areas is not a good idea. You do get some levitation on the 25th when Mercury moves into your 3rd house, into Virgo, which is very much about precision and purity and refinement. But ironically, the 3rd house has a kind of Gemini echo. So something can get talked about here. And with Chiron also going retrograde on the 26th, if you have been fabricating a situation in order to protect yourself, which we all do at times, but if there's something that is very, very tender, that does need talking through and releasing, this can be a very, very important month. But if there is some kind of squabble over resources or money, this can be a tricky month. But if it's a month where you're very much in touch with your creative flow and your connections to others in a balanced way, it can be a month when you actually improve your lot in an incredible manner. But as the month draws to a close, a lot of stuff that's linked to your past somehow can come back into the present. But if you can deal with it head on, I feel that you're actually going to end this month feeling a lot more secure and safe than you might imagine is possible. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Have a great July, Cancer. And if you've yet to subscribe, please do so now.